Hi, today I will be joined by Terry Slater from TerrySlater.com. She and I are going to have a conversation about our money journeys, our money stories, and spending habits. If you're new to the channel, I'm Sherry from SherryLouMiller.com. And here on my channel, we focus on the micro principles, mindset, intention, choices, action, and habits, all as a way to create flexibility in our budget. So I'm going to let Terry introduce herself and we're going to get started.
Perfect. So, hi, I'm Terry Slater. I'm a financial coach and I'm glad to be reconnecting with you, Sherry. It's been a really long time since we first met.
It has been.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of talk a little bit about what I do, because a lot of people don't understand exactly what a financial coach is. And I really kind of help people sort of like look at their day-to-day spending and kind of get really closely acquainted with their numbers first so that they can then see sort of like it's the the little dot on a map in the mall that says you are here. I
Yes.
want them to know where that is so that then they know like where they're going. And so really like it's not only just like a lot of like tactical financial like steps, like here's what you need to do to accomplish these goals. It's also a lot of kind of examining the thoughts that they have around like money or behaviors or maybe the other people in their lives, like how they're relating with money in relationships too. So we kind of like uncover and dig into some of those things, but a lot of it always starts with awareness because a lot of people are not looking at their numbers, so they're not completely
Exactly.
aware of where they are to begin with, and that's always very eye-opening.
And I agree because in my life, I've done a couple of 30-day spending tracking.
Yeah.
It's tedious. It's very
Yes.
tedious.
Yeah, it is.
Eye-opening because the first time I did it, I'm in Vegas now, we don't have the lottery,
Yeah.
but originally I'm from the Midwest and I used to play the lottery every day. I would
Yeah.
go, and so I told somebody when I started tracking my spending for 30
Mhm.
days, which
Yeah.
is, like I said, I had a little notebook and everything. When I saw how much I was spending, and even if I was to win, because this is the daily, not the big jackpots,
Right, right.
I probably would have broke even.
Oh,
Like I
right.
really was, because I wasn't winning. So it wasn't like I was winning,
Yeah,
playing it back, winning, playing it back.
right.
I stopped almost cold turkey. I would
Yeah,
only play like every now and then. And so
right.
I think it's the same thing with, I call them autopilot purchases, where
Yeah.
you're just spending money on autopilot. You're really not thinking about it, like the
Hmm.
coffee in the morning, the bagels. I'm not a big thing like people seem to have this with the latte factor.
Right, right.
I
Yeah,
could really
yeah,
care less. Like to me, that's just symbolic of things that represent that you're unconsciously spending money
yeah,
on.
yeah.
But I hear so many people like that just seems to be a sore spot, the latte factor.
Yeah, it is, right? And I think that so much of that is when you start to analyze like what your own values are, right?
Right.
Like so yeah, that's not a priority for me. It doesn't like make me feel good to like go have a warm cup of joe. Like I don't know the barista, but for some
Yeah.
people like that fills a different need for them.
Yes.
It's either like ritual, it's how I start my day, or they have developed relationships in the coffee shop. And so that's their people time. So I think there's so many different reasons why people do what they're doing. And I think what's important is to kind of stop and question of like, is this actually something that is important to me? Do I want to keep doing this? Do I want to keep spending money on it? Because sometimes the answer is yes, and that's fine too. But yeah, I think
Exactly.
we have to look at that, right?
And that's what I agree. So we'll start there, like with the awareness, because I agree. Like the one thing I tell people is not tracking your spending is to say that now you have to start living frugal.
Yeah,
It's just to get an indication of where you're spending your money.
yeah,
Because a lot of times I don't swipe a lot.
yeah,
When I was in corporate America, when I got paid, I take out so much money for spending.
yeah,
That's what it was.
yeah,
Because, I tell my daughter who swipes all the time,
yeah,
when you're swiping, it's so much easier to
yeah,
just do that versus
yeah,
if you go in and physically spend cash, you
yeah,
see that you're getting low. You see you have maybe $20 left or whatever it is.
yeah, yeah.
So that's what I think is the awareness of where your money's going. And
Hmm.
like you said, does it align with your goals, your values, and everything else? Or are you just spending to just be spending.
Just to be spending, right? And I'm
Right.
really glad that you brought up the cash thing already, because I think this is really important to talk about. A lot of times people want to know, like, what are the methods? What should I be doing in order to, sort of like stay within my own guardrails? And a lot of people refer back to like cash envelopes and things like that. And I know there's so many people, and it sounds like you might be one of them too, where it's like when you physically see the money getting less and less, it's like, oh, but for me, like I'm a nightmare with cash. Like to me, cash is not tracked. So I,
Okay.
I do things using, I use a credit card, but I do things with my credit card, but I track literally every penny. Like if there is even so much as 10 cents that got charged over on my credit card, I know about it because I watch it. But with me, like cash, it's almost like I found money in the laundry and I'm just like, oh, I have $20 here, and I don't care what I do with it. So yeah, I avoid cash where, but other people, that's a great mechanism. So I think you also have to know yourself
You have
and what works for you. Because if it doesn't work for you, you're not going to stick to it, right?
right, and I don't do the cash envelopes. I actually did a video because I don't understand the whole loading up envelopes. Now that I don't get, but
Right.
I will take out, like I said, because when you see the cash getting low, you're like, okay, I don't get paid for 2, 3 days. I need to
Right.
make this last.
Yeah.
If I have to go to the ATM, I'll go. But typically, I don't do ATM runs. I tell people
Yeah.
I rarely take out cash from an ATM.
Yep.
And monitoring cash, I'm not good with cash in the house. Like if I keep,
Right.
I did the savings challenge a few years ago,
Okay.
where you do, I think it works out to like $1,300 or $1,400 or whatever it
Right.
is.
Yeah. Like a
Now
dollar
that
a
I
week
don't
and
do
then
well
two.
with
Yeah.
because I start to pinch. I go, oh, I'll put it back. I'll put it back.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
do well with
Right.
that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But because the last time when I took a 2-week road trip and I
Okay.
decided the savings challenge would be my spending money for the trip,
Yeah.
I physically moved it. When I got paid, I set up a separate account and I
Hmm.
moved it over.
Yep.
Because then if I didn't see it, I didn't
Yeah.
spend it.
Yeah.
But when the cash was running low and it was in the little container, I would just
Yeah.
go take $20, $30 out.
Yeah.
So I agree with you on that. I'm not good with that type of cash in the
Hmm.
house.
Yeah.
But as
Yeah.
far as monitoring my spending, but I keep a spreadsheet. I do
Hmm.
track where my money is going.
Yeah.
I don't track like the cash part, what I spend it on. I don't do that. But
Yeah.
as far as my budget,
Yep.
I can project it out 52 weeks. So anything
Yep.
that's fixed is on and then the variables, I just put an estimate in there. And
Yeah.
then as I actually pay the bills, I
And
update it.
so, how often do you revisit that spreadsheet then? Is that like a weekly or like daily, or how
It's,
often?
I left corporate America 2 years ago. So when I was in
Okay.
corporate America, every 2 weeks, every time I got paid.
Okay. Yep.
So that's how it was set up. It was set up according to my paychecks.
Yeah.
It took me a while when I left corporate America because my income is irregular to kind of get
Yep.
into a groove. So now it's about once a week, which is a little bit much for me, but it's the only way I can kind of stay on
Okay. Interesting.
track. Yeah. I like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like
I
the
totally
bi-weekly.
think it's a hobby for me.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just, I don't know,
Yeah.
but I'm still in that flow. It was an adjustment. Like when I first left, I kind of kept paying myself every 2 weeks. But as my income
Yeah.
fluctuated, like this last year, it's been kind of volatile. So I had to,
Yeah.
adjust again to it.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so let's kind of go with because you and I talked briefly about the money mindset, money stories, because we have
Yeah.
similar stories.
Yeah.
You know, my habits didn't come from, well, my father wasn't in the household, so I can't say one way or the other, but they
Yeah.
didn't come from my mother.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
even though she was on a low income, she was pretty good with her money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And her credit, like her credit was good. She paid her bills on time, everything like that. So mine, not so much. so clearly, I didn't get it from my household. I don't really know where it came from other than I thought I was entitled to spend it.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. I think that's really interesting that you said like, her credit score was good. She was on top of her bills. Cause I don't even know that about like my parents. It was assumed. But yeah, I don't even know that. My family came from like, you don't talk about money. Like it's private. We don't talk about it. Kind of still. to this day, they're still kind of like that. My dad, I don't know, ever since I got a finance degree, like he and I would chat about some things sometimes. I think he'd be like, so let me tell you about these mutual funds, you know? So, you know, he kind of wanted to talk to me about stuff a little bit more then, but, you know, they're still like, you know, pretty private about that. And sometimes then I wonder, like, have I told my kids like too much? I don't think that I have. I don't have any problems. So there's a concept that's called financial enmeshment, where you basically kind of like over involve your children, but it's more like in a way that's like you put them in the middle. So like if there's like divorced spouses and like, you know, dad isn't paying his share of something, and so you get the kid involved to say like, you need to tell him that, you know,
Oh,
that's
okay.
like, that's enmeshment, where you get them a little bit too involved in like the dirty details of the money, right?
Right.
I, with my kids, so when I was still married, like our journey was that we paid off $200,000 in debt, but it took us 6 years. It took, that to me is a long time.
No, that's actually, I mean, I don't know what the statistics are, but
Yeah.
200,000 in 6 years sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it was, we averaged, I suppose we averaged around $30,000 a year, like paying off, but it was, I don't know, it was a roller coaster. There, I say it was like a game of whack-a-mole, right? Where it was just like every time you'd be getting ahead, like something else would pop up. But so at that time, I want to say around the time that we really were deep into that with our kids, they were probably around the ages of like 12 and 8, you know, kind of, and then on up. And I wanted them to understand like why I was saying no to things because I, you know, I was always the bad guy. So I was the one saying no to
Right.
this, or I was the one buying like only what people really like, a nice thing, but like really, I didn't go excessive for Christmas presents and stuff like that, birthday presents. I'm just like, you really have what you need. So you can have a little bit more. But, you know, I just think a lot of stuff is just excessive for the sake
Now,
of,
how old are they now?
so they're 16 and 20 now.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I did involve them in the budget conversations. So I didn't, so my ex-husband really didn't like numbers and details either. He was just like, this is your thing, like you do it. That was also part of our problem. But so what I would do is I would basically take like our combined income and I would just like subtract all the 100% necessary bills, right? Like the mortgage, the utilities, you know, grocery money, stuff like that. Because I had a good rein on the flexible spending too. But I would basically just say, okay, like, so the income minus the expenses leaves this amount, and that blank amount is what we would have like budget meetings on. And so I did that with my girls in the room too, because I wanted them to see like, okay, so, and they knew our debt-free journey too. So they knew, okay, we're putting like 2,000 towards the debt. And then now that only leaves like 1,000 to split up between having fun with your friends, you know, doing this. So it was all the like
For a whole
miscellaneous.
month, 1,000 for a month, or what
Yeah,
time
yeah,
period?
like for a month. Yeah,
Okay.
for a month. And so it was really funny when they started to like look at, because my ex was pretty, he was a spender. He was a super spender. And so they would hear sometimes like how much he wanted for like his spending money. And my oldest daughter, I can remember her going, really? like, like you're taking that much? And I thought it was funny. So, you know, they got to sort of like understand that process. But all that to say, like my oldest who's on her own now, you know, she's kind of like struggling her way through a little bit, like having
I
to
was going
figure
to
out.
ask you, how are they with money?
Yeah, so my oldest is a spender, and like she'll self-identify, like she knows that she's a spender. And my youngest, I mean, they're just wired differently, but my youngest is, I mean, you know, she's had a job for a couple years now, so she makes her own money, but she's saved up, bought a car, has savings to fall back on. So she's pretty good about like bucketing her money into like, I want to have some savings, but I want to do some things too. So
And
yeah,
that's kind of how mine's were. Like my daughters are 6 years apart,
yeah,
so 27 and 33 now.
yeah,
But when they were younger, my oldest, I told her it was like water. It just flowed through her hands. Like she could just, not, she could, her entire life. I don't like, just
yeah,
always. And I don't know
right.
where that came from because actually when she was younger, I probably was a little better. Like over years, my finances are kind of up and down, up and
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
But my youngest was the opposite. She's upstairs. She can probably hear me. Um,
Hmm.
I told her she would hold on so tight that I think the presidents were weeping. Like she was, if you gave her $20, she would probably still have the 20. She was just a
Yeah.
lot better when she was younger.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny.
But my oldest was always a spender. Like she
Yeah.
just, if you gave it to her, she spent it. If you
Yeah.
gave her $5, she spent $5.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just never enough. And they, like you said, their personalities were just different.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
Yep.
told her, she almost felt like she was entitled to all these things
Yeah.
because the first 6 years it was just her.
Yeah. Sure.
And then when the youngest came along,
Yeah.
still same amount of money to
Right.
spend, but now they're
Right.
two, not one.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think she was used to 100%, and when she had to go to 50%, it
Yeah.
became an issue.
Yeah, isn't that funny? It's funny how we can take those situations and just internalize them and turn them into something else, right? Like we were talking about, yes, your sort of story with money too, and how you felt like maybe you were entitled to spend it all. And I think that too. So I'm the youngest of three kids. I was definitely like the hand-me-down kid. My dad was a single breadwinner for a family of five, and so I didn't think that we were poor. But I think we didn't have a whole lot. Like, but my mom clearly knew how to like stretch it well. But I do feel like, well, the one memory that I have was in middle school when I asked, like, can I have a pair of Guess jeans? And they were like, yeah, no. They were like $90 jeans, and they were like, forget about it. So I do feel like then once I had a job, I didn't spend a lot in high school because I was saving for a car. But then I have all these stories, my funny stories. My parents told me I couldn't use my car savings to buy a car. They were like, "You're gonna need that for college," and I was like, "Oh, well, I mean, that's not gonna make a dent in my tuition, but if you say so." So I never ended up using it to buy a car. And then when I went to college, I mean, that money was gone so fast, and I lived on student loans. But I was the kid that like I got, more than enough to live on my student loan money. And then I was just like, who wants pizza? And like I'd buy for everybody else, and I bought camcorders and
From
stereo
your
equipment.
student
Like
loans?
I just bought, yes, with my student loans. I just bought and bought and bought and bought. And that hangover didn't really like end until I was like 22. So really it was just like, I just
Do
went
you
through
think
this
that came
phase.
from being told no?
I don't know if it was that or if I just like I had never just like had like the money to get whatever I
To
wanted. So it
spend
just kind of
freely.
yeah, it just sort of, I think it really felt for me like, oh my God, I have all this money. Like I can buy anything I want. Like never mind that it was a loan that had to be paid back, right? Never mind that. So I was the one that like totally abused credit cards. So anyway, I've done
But I think at
everything
that
wrong.
age, that even now,
Yeah.
at that age, they think it's free money.
Yeah.
Because when my daughter first went to college, my oldest, um, that was before the credit card regulations were placed.
Right.
Yeah. And she, you know how they'll set up the little booths on Welcome
Hmm.
Day or whatever it is?
Yep.
And it came to my house though.
Oh,
And so I
oh.
said, no,
Uh-huh.
no, no.
Yeah.
So then she got smarter. The next one didn't come to my house.
Yeah,
And she
right.
got like, I don't remember, we'll say $500. It wasn't a lot. She
Yeah.
literally spent it in a weekend. So I
Hmm.
told her,
Wow.
no, that's not free money. Like you
Yeah.
don't have a job. Who's
Yeah.
going to pay that bill?
Right.
But I think when I went to college, not not when I graduated high school, but my senior year of college,
Yeah.
that's when they started to like send all the applications. I don't know if
Mm.
they had a mailing list for seniors
Yeah.
graduating,
Yeah.
but that's when I started to get them. And they
Right.
were the retail stores, which, oh my
Hmm.
God, no.
Yeah.
Like I
I
tell
know.
people, I had J.C. Penney, Sears, like all the
Oh, yeah.
retailers back then. And those are a nightmare to me.
Yeah.
And
Maybe we should tell people why they're a nightmare.
well, for me, it was because like I only had I only had a couple of $100 limit,
Yeah.
but the interest rate, and I can't tell you because this was so long ago what they were, but they were
Yeah.
high for the
Yeah.
time.
Like
And
26%.
they were extremely high, and they wouldn't negotiate because after I got out of when I graduated, the economy was bad, so I
Yeah.
didn't find a job for a while, and I was fortunate that I didn't really graduate with student loan debt.
Yeah. Good.
So, but they wouldn't settle. They wouldn't work with credit counselors, like
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
And you end up owing so much more, like I did. Let me speak for myself. I
Yeah.
ended up owing more than I had charged.
Yeah. Right.
And,
Because
and
if
I
you're
had
not
to
paying
pay
it.
it like they wouldn't negotiate nothing.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because if you're not paying it in full, right, you're always going to be owing more. But I think
Right.
that also what's important to understand is like those affinity cards, right, is what they call them. So these affinity cards, I don't know that people necessarily understand like just like the marketing ploy. Like I think that we all need to be aware of how we're being marketed to. Like I'm definitely a skeptic at heart, but I've also fallen victim to some good marketing before. But so yeah, I mean, like, right, JCPenney, like, oh, it's my favorite store. They've got a card, or Target, they offer 5% off if you use the card,
Mhm.
kind of a thing. And it's like, yes, but what they've done then is they've incentivized you to continue to only go to that store, or to keep going to that store, and things that you might not have bought, you would buy then because you feel like you're saving because you got a discount on it. I went to a office supply store recently to get my TSA pre-check thing done, and they gave me a coupon to use that day, and it was like save $5 when you spend 20. And I'm thinking, oh, how many people, I love office supplies, but how many people would then take that and say like, oh look, I got this thing and I saved $5? No, you spent 15 because you probably weren't planning
You
on
weren't going to
spending that
spend the
money.
20.
So
And
we
that's
have
what
to,
I tell
yeah.
people. Like, I'm a sucker for the buy one, get one free. I'm
Yeah.
more of a sucker for that one because I'll go, well, really, instead of 20, they're just 10 a piece.
Yeah.
Now, if it's something I use on a regular basis,
Right.
yes. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, just because you can get one free, you're going to buy
Hmm.
it. And
Yeah.
I was a more of an emotional spender.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I think it's okay. Like you were saying, your daughter's a spender. My oldest is a spender.
Yeah.
If your income can support that, it's
Right.
fine.
Right.
The problem comes in when your income
Doesn't. Exactly.
can't support
Exactly.
it and you're still spending as if your income can.
Yeah.
And
And you
that's what
can't.
I try to tell her. Like
Right.
I had to recognize one of my stories I tell all the time. A good friend of mine, like all of a sudden, literally dropped dead. Like,
Oh,
and
wow.
I had a really hard time with it. Like,
Yeah.
and so after the funeral, I didn't want to go for whatever reason. I didn't want to go to the cemetery. I just
Yeah.
didn't want to see him be put in the ground. So
Yeah.
instead, I go like, I'm going to go shopping.
Yeah.
And I buy a
Right.
dining room set. Like I didn't even like it. Like when I look at pictures
Mm.
of it, I'm like, God, that thing was
Mm.
ugly. But I
Oh,
came
yeah.
home with a dining room set. And I think that's when I started to realize that I was an
Mm.
emotional spender.
Yeah.
Because I was planning on I was planning on buying a dining room set, but that day I just went out and came home with one. Didn't go to
Yeah.
multiple stores or anything. I
Yeah.
was just like, I guess self-medicating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 That's a big thing. And I think a lot of people would just sort of maybe say that it's because it's like a current trend. And I'm speaking about like makeup, right? Like, I think makeup, at least for me, I think just being a woman in my 40s and having two daughters, like, I feel like makeup is a trend now in a way that it did not used to be, right?
I see
And
some
with,
of these videos.
yeah.
I told my daughter, if I had to do that every day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. No, forget about it. Like I take pride in my makeup taking like less than 3 minutes. I'm just like, yeah. But I think that what some people do is they also sort of rationalize like that, it's a trend or it makes me feel good or, whatever. But also I feel like sometimes it's like you might need to look at like what's in here, and are you spending in order to like make yourself feel better or cover up for something else, right? Like I know that that's also the thing with kind of like the weight loss industry too, right? I mean, big money in that business, big money. And they're sort of marketing to people who may potentially just not feel good about themselves,
Right.
right? Now, if it's your business or you just like have enough money and you love to buy makeup, like great. But it sometimes can be like when you feel like the spending starts to become in excess, it's like, is it really about the makeup? Is it something else going on here? Can I work on this instead? And just sort of like recognize what's happening with that spending too. So yeah,
Well,
that's
I
hard to
think that's where
realize.
the awareness comes in. Like you
Mhm.
actually, if you decide, like for me, in 2008, I went through a hardship doing the financial thing. And
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, if I don't ever want to be in this place again,
Hmm.
what are you going to do differently?
Yeah.
Because if you don't, and I went back for a year. I went
Mm-hmm.
through all my credit card statements,
Wow.
the bank statements. I can't say I did 100% because they were a little like
A little harder to decipher.
multiple reasons in there. But I did, like, I tracked them as best I could in a
Yeah.
spreadsheet. I had a
Mm-hmm.
friend of mine help me like categorize so I could see. And most of my money went to online training because I
Mm.
was trying to transition from corporate
Yeah.
being on my own, but it was
Yep.
still excessive. Like
Right.
to this day, some of those courses I still have not watched.
No, I
And so
me
I
too.
was like,
I
oh
get
my
that.
God, like stop it.
Yeah, that's kind of common, I feel like. That's especially with the online course sort of industry, that's pretty common that a lot of us are like, I need that. And then we really don't have time for all the things that we
You
sign up
don't
for.
have
So,
time for it. And
yeah.
the thing is, like, for me, I pay for convenience across the board. Like, I recognize I will pay for
Yep.
convenience. It's my
Hmm.
money, and I would much prefer to spend the money than the time,
Yeah.
like if it's possible. So
Yeah.
the courses were that I go like, God, how long is it going to take me to figure this out?
Yeah.
Because especially some things like email marketing, some things I know is a lot of moving parts,
Right.
and it'll take me a while to figure it out. So I'm like, okay, is this worth it?
Yeah.
But literally, like, I had this one course, I won't say who it was,
Yeah.
but when I bought it, it was a Facebook ads course.
Okay.
And that's like, you really have to kind of know what you're doing with those.
Yeah.
And so I liked her style, but she was in a partnership.
Yeah.
When you buy it, they say it's a
Right.
lifetime
Right. Right.
access.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think I owned it for about a year, and I had actually set down because I was getting close to transitioning
Yeah.
the order of courses. Well, they decided to dissolve their partnership.
Mm-hmm.
So the course was no longer lifetime. And I
Mm-hmm.
went back and forth with them because I said, so technically I was renting the course. I didn't own it because they gave us the MP3s,
Yeah.
which you can't learn Facebook ads from audio.
No.
Like,
No.
and plus I'm a visual learner. In general, I'm a visual learner. So I
Yeah.
told them, if you can give me the MP3s, you can give me the MP4s. And
Right.
because I bought the course,
Right.
they tried to tell me they didn't have them. Like, we
Oh.
went back and forth, back and forth. So he went in a totally different direction. She's still doing some, but I was like, I will never buy anything from you
Yeah.
again because, like, you decided to dissolve it,
Yeah.
sold it as lifetime access,
Right.
so provide the files. Like,
Right.
that's how I
Right.
felt about it because and it wasn't a lot, but it was enough to be a sore spot.
Yeah, and that's also hard too because that's one of those things that I know with online marketing there's a lot of moving parts, but specifically with Facebook ads, Facebook changes their platform so frequently that if you're
Yes.
not keeping up, you're not keeping up. So even there now, even if you had the MP4s, it's
Well,
like
then I
still
was
is
just ready
dated.
to look at them. That's what I told them. Like, I've
Yeah.
owned this. And you
Yeah.
know how most people will continuously update the courses. Like,
Yes.
so I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I've owned this for a year and now I'm ready
Hmm.
to use it.
Yeah.
And now I don't have access to it.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was a sticking point for me.
For
I
sure.
was a little disappointed in it, but it was like, okay, lesson learned that it's
Yeah.
really not lifetime. It's as long as they're around. you
Right.
know.
Right.
And if they
Yeah. So
allow me the
true.
access to download MP4s, I will do that just so that doesn't happen again.
Right.
But it was just like, that was another lesson that I was spending money on these courses because at the time, and I remember when I bought it, it was a Black Friday sale. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, get it now because you're going to buy
Right.
it anyway.
Yeah.
It was that bargain mentality, like,
Yeah.
get in now.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
so I had to examine all that. I was like, okay, you need to like count to 5 or something before you just start buying these courses. Like,
Yeah.
do you have the time to review them? Are you actually going to use them? Like, I almost had to put a checklist because I
Yeah.
was like, when I looked at how much, when I went back through my spending, how
Yeah.
much had actually gone, that was the largest category.
Yeah. 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 That's so important though to put in like little stops like that for yourself too. So one of the things that I talk about with people too is like, number one, you can say like, take your card out of your wallet if you're just like out and running around so you're not tempted to spend, but also too like the digital wallet is like a thing now, right? So how many of us have the like click with one click
One click,
purchase on
yeah.
Amazon, or I'm like, no, 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 let's not do that. So number one, turn that kind of thing off too. But even so, like with Apple Pay or, Google Pay, all the different like little digital wallets. So if you're on your phone or on your computer and you're shopping online and it's like, click to fill in your credit card information. If you can click a button and it pre-fills all the information and all you need to remember is your 3-digit code, you should probably just remove that. Like remove that from your digital wallet so that you have to physically get up, go get your card, type in the numbers. Because when you're like sitting in bed, like on your iPad at 11 o'clock at night, and something just comes to you that you really want, it's like, are you willing to get out of bed, go get that card, type in so putting
Right.
like little stops in place for yourself is like really important.
It is, because when it's convenient, you'll just do it. Like I said, the autopilot,
Yeah.
unconscious spending. You're
Yeah.
doing it because another thing, like I was a scrapbooker.
Oh yeah. Oh, me too.
Are you a scrapbooker?
I was. I
Oh
was. I
my
spent so
God.
much money on it and I was like, I think I need to stop this. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I remember one time, I don't know, this was years ago. I was still working in Detroit, and a lot of people in the financial, they're golfers. And
Okay.
that's an expensive hobby
Oh
too.
yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
so, I would come in with my scrapbook. I don't know if you remember creating keepsakes, and I
Oh
would
yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I would, be mapping out my, over lunch. And they were like,
Right.
how much do you spend on that hobby? And so I was like, not as much as you spend on golf. Like,
Right.
because
Right. Right.
because I don't know how, like HSN, and it was actually another one. I think it was actually QVC back then. They would have the scrapbook days, like the
Oh, funny.
24-hour. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, they don't sell that locally. I need to get
Oh.
that. Or
Uh-huh.
that's really a good deal, that bundle. I need to get that.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, there's so much stuff in my scrapbook. I don't
Yeah.
scrapbook anymore. I am actually working on a couple now, but they're so much more simplistic. Like back then,
Yeah.
people were into all the embellishments and all that type of stuff. And for both my
Oh
daughters,
yes.
that's when I got into scrapbooking. Lisa Burnson was
Mm-hmm.
on Oprah, and my oldest
Okay.
was getting ready to graduate. And I was like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do that. I'm gonna do the whole 18 years up until she graduates.
Right.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, Michael's became my new best friend.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. And there was a store that was local here. I don't even know if they're still in business, but they're not local in Colorado anymore, but it was called Archivers. And
We
that's
had,
all they did was, yeah, so they just sold scrapbooking, but I remember they would have, so this was like, I had like kind of a girlfriend group and we would like pick a new craft or something to do once a month. And we finally got to scrapbooking once and then I got addicted. So Archivers would actually have a night where you would pay like $40 to go for the night. They would bring in like pizza or food. They would have food brought in to feed
they
you.
actually called that something. I never
Yeah.
participated, but we had archives
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the crop night. And
Yeah,
so,
prop
yeah,
night.
and we would go. And so the two of us would just sit there for like, 4, 5, 6 hours. I can't remember. It was a long night. And so, but then like, as you're like looking at your designs, you're like, man, I need something. And it's like, oh, the store is right here.
That's
And
how
so
they
you
get
literally just shop. And I can remember one time having like a $200 night. And I was just like, oh, God, that's so much money. And I spent too much on that. So I did finally get to a point where I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. I
Well,
gotta
I still like it, but I had to recognize that was truly a weakness because, like you
Yeah.
said, I didn't do the crop nights, but we had archivers. And because
Hmm.
Michael's only had a scrapbook section and that was a scrapbook
Yeah.
store, it was like a
Right.
kid in a candy store when I would go
Yes.
in there. And then every year, it wasn't archivers, I forget, but it was this organization. They would have this huge scrapbooking store first weekend in May.
Yeah.
People I worked with knew I was taking that weekend off. Every year I took that weekend off
Oh,
to,
yeah.
and for
Yeah.
3 days, but I would budget for that. I had to learn to only take
Yeah.
cash because the first year I
Yeah.
didn't, and
Yeah.
I was just like, but the
Yeah.
one thing, it was
Yeah.
scrapbook stores from all over the country. So there were things that
Yep.
weren't in our local market, which was very dangerous for me.
Okay.
I was like, oh God, I've never seen
Yeah.
that before. So I had
Right.
to recognize,
Right.
like,
Right.
a couple of years in, I'm thinking, like you said, take a couple $100, Oh, you froze for a minute. Take a couple $100
Oh,
to keep myself on a budget. But it
yeah,
was like throughout the course of my financial journey, I've had to learn my triggers. Like with the
yeah, right.
scrapbooking, the new gadget came out, I thought I had to have.
Yeah,
And some of
yeah,
them are literally still up there in the boxes. I'm waiting for my friend. They're having a neighborhood yard sale now that,
yeah,
and I'm gonna like sell quite a bit of it.
yeah, 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 for
Either that
sure.
or I'm gonna end up donating it. I used to sell it on eBay, but I don't really want to be bothered. So I'll either
Yeah,
donate it or sell it at the garage sale. But I have so much stuff that's still up there in boxes.
right.
It's a true indication if people look at their habits. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you're buying all these things, if you have clothes in your closet with still tags on them or things
Yeah,
like that,
right.
like I think those are the areas that you kind of need to examine.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And is it, kind of, is it meeting the need or is it trying to meet somebody else's need? Like I recognize that there was a lot in my former marriage that was like not great. And so there were different ways that spending would show up to try to like fix that. Right. And so, that might have been like, if he worked long hours and wasn't home and didn't really help me cook or anything like that, then I would just say, what, let's just go out to eat tonight. That way we're all at a table. We can all sit and talk. We can connect. No one's cooking, no one's doing the dishes. It's like our time to connect. But that started to become like so frequent that it was just kind of like, yeah, this isn't like, so it was like one problem just sort of popped up out of another problem. So
yeah.
you sometimes really have to look at, are you saying yes to things because you feel the pressure from your friends or you feel the pressure from your family. Like I hear a lot about people who like, oh, my parents are insisting that we come on this vacation with them. And I'm like, are they paying for it too? No, they're not. Well, then how do they get to insist? So you got to look at like who's pressuring you or like what is your role in that spending and like what is it really doing for you? Because I'm not trying to say like you should only buy what's necessary, but I know that, like, for me, like, my extraneous spending has virtually just been eliminated just because I'm not a people pleaser, I'm not trying to please anybody else. I'm not in a relationship
So is
dynamic
that
anymore.
recently during the COVID or just in general?
No, totally in general. Well, since my divorce, really. But I
Okay.
mean, once we got out of debt, so as we were really serious about the debt payoff journey, like that was just like, I mean, we had to like rein it in to like get that accomplished. But then even after that was accomplished, like there was still just a total like lack of savings. And then it was just like, oh, we've missed out on things for so long. What should we plan for a trip? Should we do? And so anyway, it was a little bit of that too. But now that I don't have that relationship or that dynamic anymore. I'm just like, I'm pretty self-sufficient with things that don't cost anything. Most of my hobbies and where I get all of my enjoyment is just literally like outside. And so I don't spend on much anything anymore. So it's helpful. It's helpful because I'm saving like crazy now.
Yes, I mean, I think that's helped me a little bit too, because I'm not big on eating out. Like
Yeah.
even before all of this happened, like I used to go out maybe a couple of times, meet friends, only because I work from home and I need to get out, get out of
Yeah.
the house. But
Right.
in general, I'm not. And so when all of this happened, I've looked at things like that you just couldn't spend on because I
Yeah.
needed to tighten
Right.
on my belt. And I'm like, I don't miss them. And,
Right.
and that's the thing, like I was telling a friend of mine, I said, you kind of got to figure out the things that you gave up. Do you want to get back to them? Or
Right.
do they really not, like you learn that they really don't matter? Like I like to travel. Now I like to go out of town, whether it's just hop over to California for the weekend or something.
Right.
Now that I like to spend money on. I
Yeah.
don't have to stay in a very expensive place. It needs to be
Hmm.
nice, clean, and all of that. But
Yeah.
I don't need all the bells and whistles for a
Sure.
hotel. I never have. That type of stuff has never meant anything to me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
nice to have it, but it's not a
Hmm.
criteria of
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You
And
just
so
get
I
back to
tell
what's
people,
important.
I travel on a budget. Like my kids used to know, like even when we would eat out, and maybe that's why my daughter is, because I would tell them, I was like, I'm gonna make these numbers up because I don't
Yeah.
remember. Okay, you have $50.
Yeah.
Like, so that's your entree, your dessert, whatever. I would give them a dollar amount. Like,
Yeah.
you can get whatever, but
Yep.
$50.
Right.
And so, so
Yeah.
as she's gotten older, when she goes out, she has appetite. Like she has every category on the menu.
That's
And one day
funny.
I thought about it. I go, I wonder if that came from,
How
one
that
day
was
I might have to
presented.
ask her, did that come from the fact that like
Yeah.
I didn't really allow them to splurge? Because
Yeah.
I like to go out. Like we used to
Hmm.
go out, I think, once a month when they were younger,
Yeah.
always for their birthday,
Yep.
but I was still on a budget. So for
Yeah.
me and my youngest, she was kind of like me. We were happy with the experience,
Yeah. Right.
just to be able to go out and do this. But my
Mhm.
oldest, like she always she wanted it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now when I look at her spending habits, I wonder if I created that.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to say, right? It's hard to say. Yeah. Like I said, I think it's a lot of like if you do any there's a lot of different maybe I shouldn't say a lot of. There are some like quizzes and kind of like activities that can be found online. There's a website called Data Points that has several of them, and you can do these little quizzes that sort of like help you like identify like how you relate to money and how you feel about money. And some of this stuff is like,
Did you say
just
data point? Because I'll put
yeah,
it in the
data
notes.
points. Yeah, it's a website that has a few different like quizzes and things on it too, but it will help you. It kind of just gives you like a readout of like your own like money. So there's some that are like a money personality, right? And that can
I've
be
seen
like
those.
introvert, extrovert, that type of thing too. But then it can also, there's other things that will show you like if you're sort of like a money worshiper, where you just like, like always holding on to it or always striving to have more. Do you believe that more money will bring me more happiness? So there's all these like different like deep-seated beliefs that we may not even like fully internalize or think about, but yeah, a lot of it just does come from what did you see from the other people around you. There's a really neat exercise that you can do where you actually sort of physically like map out like all the different men and women that or people that have been in your life that have any importance, right? And that can be like clergy, grandparents, uncles, teachers, like whoever, and then start to like look at how what from what how did this person have money or not have money? How did the money flow? Did they only bring it in or did they only spend it? And so you can almost kind of start to look at like really analyzing the people in your life as it relates to money, and then you can think about that, because I think there's very overt messages that we can get about money or people and money too. I know one example that's in a book I was reading was talking about, oh, if like there's a family that's like not very wealthy, but then they've got one, uncle that like made it big and now lives in a boat off of the Florida coast or something. And it's like, oh, look at that guy. He thinks he's better than everyone else. And it's like, oh, so there now you've taken someone who has been financially successful and made it to mean that they think they're better than others.
Mhm.
That's a thought. That's not a truth, right? It's
Right.
not a truth that revolves around money. It's a thought about the person. So there's just so many things like that we could all just sort of dig into and start to realize how we are different. Because I think this is also something that you and I talked about too, where when you have siblings that both grew up in the same financial environment, how they can act completely different also. And so the environment was the same, but somehow we internalized things differently and reacted to it in a different way.
And that is interesting because we talked about, because there's six of us, you said there are five of you guys. So we had four, and then
Yeah.
there's a big gap, and then, the two oops babies. So,
Yeah.
so it was like them, and then the gap, and then us. And
Yeah.
so we grew up, post divorce.
Yeah.
So in a single family home. And we are total opposites when it comes to money. And
Yeah.
we both, and I really don't know where it comes from other than it must just be a personality trait, because we both worked jobs as teenagers.
Yeah.
Um, Neither one of us graduated with student loan debt. She went on a scholarship. She had a full scholarship.
Yeah.
Mine was grants and scholarships, but we didn't have to,
Good.
take any loans out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. She's more like my mother. And
Hmm.
since I wasn't around my father, maybe I'm more like his
Yeah.
spending habits. Like I
Yep.
didn't see them, so I
Yeah.
can't say,
Yeah.
he was involved in our life, but it's different on a day to day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she definitely was more like my mother. bills on time, the credit score,
Yeah.
doesn't want debt, like any of that.
Yeah.
That's how she was. And I didn't get those traits.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So I would assume it must be something related to our personalities because we were in the same household. We had a similar path,
Mm-hmm.
but we ended up in two very different
Yeah.
destinations. Like,
But still, right? You and I both, because I had a similar journey, right? Where I also kind of went nuts, but then I've totally like kind of gotten back to my roots or reined it in or whatever. No matter what your personality is and how you are with money, you can turn it around, right? It
yeah,
starts with that awareness, starts with the self-awareness too. So not just the awareness of your numbers, because it's one thing to like look at the numbers, it's another to just be like self-aware and owning like what part of that is me versus like blaming external circumstances,
yeah.
for everything too. So yeah, that it's definitely important to know that you can change, if there's things that you're willing to change.
Well, that was the thing because that's how my Micah came about. Because when The Secret came out, like
Mm-hmm.
I started reading more books about your mindset. Like I really
Yeah.
didn't jump on that bandwagon, but it
Mm-hmm.
just opened up a door to your thoughts, like how
Right.
those actually, you know, like where I was in life, then how my choices got me there. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then those choices, like my thought process when I was making those choices. So I typically reflect on my birthday, like,
Mm.
where
Yeah.
I am. I don't do first of the year. I tell
Yeah,
people
good.
like, yeah. So
Yeah.
usually on my birthday, like I evaluate, like, okay, like you said, because I'm the same way. You're here and you want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you make, and if you're not where you want to be, then what are you going to do to get there?
Yeah.
So I had to, like, probably the deepest dive was after the 2008,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I was like, okay, you made decent money. You shouldn't have been where you were. So those, those past choices, and I don't beat myself up.
Yeah,
Like
good.
I don't
Right.
live with regret. I don't do if
Mm-hmm.
I coulda, woulda, shouldas. So I'm
Yep.
like, okay, your past choices got you here.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I had to go through the whole mindset thing. So I did. I started
Yeah.
reading a lot more personal development books,
Yeah.
which, because you can, like you said, you can change your journey. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, I do agree with you. You have to know your numbers. Like
Yeah.
if you don't know your numbers,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how you make it work, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's just my opinion. Like
Yeah.
I pretty much, whether I like it or not, like when I had a lot of, I got more debt now than I would like to,
Yeah.
but I still know the numbers. Like avoiding it doesn't really help you. And
Right.
especially if you want to make a change, like in order to make the change, you have to know where you're starting from.
Yeah.
And to me, that's both the numbers and like yourself, like you
Yeah.
said, your mindset, your
Mm-hmm.
story, like, why are you making those type of choices?
Yeah. And are those choices still serving you?
Serving you, and are they aligned, like, what I want for my life? Because for me, I'm looking to move to Portugal. So to
Yeah.
get there,
Yeah.
I have to be, you can't take money from their economy. So I have to be able to support myself off
Yep.
of, so I don't want to go with a lot of debt and all those type of things because
Yeah.
in a foreign country, it's not like you're still in, in the States and you can maybe do different things.
Yeah.
So it's like, are my choices aligned with that long-term goal?
Right.
Or am I just out here like living my best life seems to be the trend? Am I just
Yeah.
out here
Right. Right.
life?
Yeah.
We'll wrap up with, so as a financial coach, and we'll put your information in the description too.
Sure.
So what do you do? Like, do you start there with someone's story? Like, do you kind of reverse engineer it, or?
I actually start with making them look at the numbers. So the very first session that I do with somebody, I assign them homework, and really I say like I need you to go dig and like find these numbers, because inevitably, like number one, that paints a really good picture for me where I can kind of ask a lot of questions based on what I see, but inevitably for them, it always turns out to be an eye-opening experience. People thought that I thought I only spent this much on groceries, but I guess I spend more like this. And so we talk about, were there extenuating circumstances? Did you have family in town? Like any of that. So really we talk about all the awareness stuff first. And then I also have to make them get so clear on their goals, because sometimes the goals are a little bit intangible, right? It's not always as simple as, I want to get out of debt, or I want to, like, even I want to retire. Like, that needs to be made more specific. So I'll ask people, like, I want you to basically fill in the blanks. I'll know I've been successful when, and fill in that blank. And so a lot of times what we're working with is we just start getting into the habit of tracking. Are you doing what you thought you were doing or what you want to be doing? And if not, then we start to work on like how to change like just the tactical behaviors with money. But then often what happens is certain things will come up for people where they feel like, I can't do any better than this, or I can't do anything differently here. And so then we start to look at, okay, is that okay with you though? Like, if maybe you don't want that to change, like if that doesn't change, are you okay with that? And so that's where we start to really like look at everything as like kind of the one-off experience, to find out, we're all different, right? We're all different. We all have different goals. So I want to make it work for you. Whatever your goal is, I want to help you accomplish that. But we also need to be very clear about how you'll know you've been successful too. So so that's kind of where all that comes in. I do a lot of different exercises with people sort of along the way where we can look at some of the other stuff that's about their past and their story, and kind of digging into values. And it's a lot also on like how to have conversations, because sometimes you've got relationships where the two people either don't see eye to eye, or like one person does the money, the other one doesn't. So I also can help kind of facilitate those conversations to say, to help take the emotion out, take the emotion out and just ask, maybe you should ask him or her the question in this way, or have you two had a conversation about your visions for your future together and whether or not what you're doing now aligns to that. So it's a lot, it's kind of complex, and it all depends on the individual.
Oh, I can imagine, because personally, I've never been married. And I tell people, I was like, I don't know how you manage a checking account with someone else. Because I used to work for someone whose husband had would never record like ATMs or getting gas with a debit card. So their budget was always, well, not their budget, their checking account was always out of whack because he wasn't as good as recording things.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I have hard enough time tracking my own. And you put somebody else in that who has access, because not everybody seems to separate their finances.
No,
like,
people
I know
do
some
it.
people do, but not everyone seems to.
Yeah, people do it so many different ways. I call it like yours, mine, and ours, because sometimes people keep it totally separate. Sometimes it's all together. And then sometimes people do that thing where they've got their account, your account, and then a joint account. And so people do a lot of different things. And as long as it works for you, or you find a system that's successful, then that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long do you normally coach someone?
So I do offer just like a one-off session, which is like a 90-minute, like it's very deep and intense, and I make them do all that homework first, and then I will send them away with an action plan. And then with the action plan, I essentially say, do you feel comfortable getting after all these things on your own, or do you think that you might need help along the way? Because some people are like, give me the to-do list and I'll do it. Right. Other people are like, I'm going to need some support. So if people want support, I have two different options. I can do a 1-month intensive where we just work together once a week, and that way they can ask me anything. We make sure they're on track. If there's some larger things or like a lot going on that needs to be accomplished, I offer a 3-month coaching plan, where it's still the same 1-month intensive, but then we add twice a week check-ins, or every 2 weeks, every 2 week check-ins for the next couple months, just to make sure that they're on track. And sometimes they move so quickly that we can start onto new things too. So yeah, it's a couple different options to see, whether or not they feel like they're comfortable just getting after it, or if they've got a lot of questions.
So we'll wrap up with, like I said, you're trained for it. I have a degree in accounting, but everything related to budgeting is just life experience.
Yeah.
So is there one tip that you would probably give someone who's looking to change their financial situation?
Yeah, I guess I would say that for me, the one tip is like, budgeting is not the important part. So if you keep hearing like, I need to budget, I don't think that's the truth. I think what you need to do is track. So as long as you're tracking your spending, that means that you have awareness around it, because budgeting is just a plan. And if you're going to make a plan and then never stick to it anyway, what was the point? So I don't worry about budgeting. I think that that's something that can come later. But I think that above all else, if you're not currently tracking or don't have any way to track, that is where I would always say to get started.
And I agree. I tell people, I think a budget or tracking is just a visual representation of
Yep.
where your money's going. Like if you get away from the terminology, because people just seem to have this negative connotation with budget,
Right.
the word budget,
Yeah.
it just represents where your money's going. And for me, like I can see my habits like that because
Yeah.
on my spreadsheet, I put where any money that flows out, except for, like I said, when I take a lump sum cash out, but
Yep.
anything else goes on the spreadsheet.
Yep.
So I can really see where my money has gone.
Yeah.
Because I've only done the actual 30-day tracking maybe I think like 3 times.
Okay. Yeah.
You know? Because every now and then when I feel like I'm out of whack, I'm like, okay, like where's my money going?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, especially because my spreadsheet does not track credit cards. It's only like the money,
Okay.
like my income, my earnings.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
track anything else. So when I see my credit card statements, I'm like, okay, what are you spending on? Like,
Yeah,
where?
because that's part, if you're using it as an extension of your spending, that's part of it too, right? Yeah.
Especially the autos and the subscriptions. I think those can be dangerous because like my daughter's done it, I've done it, where you set it up and you really just forget about it. Like you're not even using that service anymore, especially if it's on a credit card. I tell people, if it's coming out of my checking account, I'm a little more aware. But if I've attached it to a credit card,
Yeah.
because I probably need to get in the habit of doing that. I don't review those as much as
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yep.
So you seem like you track yours. Like I
Yeah.
track it probably quarterly. I
Yeah.
don't track it monthly.
Oh yeah, I maybe do it daily. It's a hobby of mine. I
Oh,
really
really?
love
No,
looking
that's
at
too
numbers.
much.
But so the way that I do it now is I put all of my spending on a credit card and, I pay it off every month, but I will go even further to say I actually pay my card off every week because I want the balance to be coming out of my checking account so that my checking account is the part that's diminishing. So all my spending, which is all very planned, goes on a credit card. The credit card gets paid off every month. But also I will say this too, the other part about like the not knowing exactly what's happening is like big box stores like Target, Walmart, those kind of things. Because I've seen people where that's where they get their groceries. And I'm like, was it all groceries though? Or did you also pick up a gift? Did you also buy, some, clothes or whatever?
Right.
So anything like that, that's also kind of a big box store where you can be merging a bunch of spending categories together is another one to watch out for too. So.
Yes. So if you want to give your website and information where everybody can reach you, and then we'll close out with that. But it was good talking to you. We have a lot of similarities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I kind of remember from when we were in San Diego, that our business were kind of similar and personality too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was really great to catch up. So my website is my full name. It's terislater.com. And on the website, you can find links to all my different social profiles. But I do also have a free mini course that's on the website. So if anyone wants to sign up for that, they can almost kind of get a taste of what it's like to go through financial coaching. It's a 3-part video series that's totally free. So helps people to kind of get their foot in the door and start on the right track.
And we'll link your YouTube because I know some of the things we've talked about, you've done YouTube videos on.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
All right. Well, it was good talking to you. Well, that was a good conversation. Teri and I both had our own money journeys, similar in experiences, but we had our own way of rerouting to change our destination. So just because your past experiences may not have been aligned with your values or goal doesn't mean that you can't change. Your personality is your personality, but you can learn to make intentional choices. And the first way to do that is to create awareness. If you want to make a change, you have to know where you are now. And tracking your spending is a good indicator. So don't forget, if you found value in the content today, to hit the thumbs up, like the video. That helps with the rankings so that more people are exposed to our conversations and the concepts to change our finances. In addition, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you're notified the next time I post a video. I'll see you next weekend. Have a good day.